Trapped by the belief that I'm not good enough, bound by the limitations and the lies that consumed my world, this was me. It wasn't until I took the biggest leap in my life to know and trust the power within. And it was at that moment I made a choice. My past will not define me anymore. Hello, I am Teri, and I know I am not alone in this. Over the years, I have found that the number one mistake that we make is that we get in the way of our own success story. Yes, I said it. On this show, together we'll tackle limiting beliefs, self sabotage, getting stuck, fear, doubt, overwhelm, and the imposter syndrome. Join us on this journey designed to transport you beyond your limitations to a world where anything is possible. This is Talking with Teri. Hello, and welcome back to Talking with Teri, where we have powerful conversations to transform your life and your business. And I am so excited. This guest just warned me to buckle in. So, ladies and gentlemen, buckle in. Okay. I'm delighted to be introducing Traci Reuter. Did I say that right?
Reuter, yeah, you did it.
Okay,
Good
perfect.
job.
She's founder and CEO of this Divine Social, believes that entrepreneurs and businesses can change the world, and her mission is to support them along the way. She's passionate about helping those business owners build and grow their brands so that they can better focus on providing value to their customers and positively impacting the world. Welcome, Traci, because I love the fact about impact. That is my word of the year, is all about making impact. And so I can't wait to dive in. So welcome, Traci.
Thanks for having me, Teri. I'm excited to be here.
Now, we were just talking earlier. You used to live in Florida, or used to live in Denver or Colorado, and she
Yep.
has jumped ship and has moved to Florida. So, wah wah, we lose an
Yeah.
amazing being.
Oh, you know what? Colorado, we love, 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 love Colorado. And it's where, I started Divine Social, and it'll always be a special place for me. And it's just insane the journey that life continues to take us on. I never thought in a million years I'd live in Florida. And now I think this is it. Like, I don't think we're ever going to
Yeah.
leave. So,
It
yeah.
doesn't. So, okay. So tell me, I'm always fascinated by the stories and how we get from point A to point B. And it's always kind of this unique route. And I feel like we can never really understand or know at the time that we're going to end up here. So share with me how you got to where you're at today.
uh like just in general business wise,
Yeah.
but yeah, okay, well,
Yeah.
I won't get too super detailed, because I could, write a book on this, and I've actually been people have said I should. But I'm a classic story of like the rich dad poor dad, if you've ever read that book.
Yeah.
Daughter of a factory worker. My father abandoned our family when I was 8 years old, and I basically like kind of kept things going while my mother was like going to have a nervous breakdown. And I had this
Wow.
rich uncle who kind of I watched and I learned from, and he came from Greece with nothing but like the clothes on his back, and now he's this multimillionaire. And so I had these lessons as a really, really young girl that I was like, okay, there's more to life. Like, everybody
Mm,
in my hometown worked in a factory, and I was like, I'm not doing it. Nobody had
yeah.
ever gone to college in my family, and I'm like, I'm not doing it. So, I knew early on I really was destined for big things. We even joke here in Florida, my husband and I, we drive by the multi-million dollar mansions, and I'll point at them and I'm like, I was born to live in one of those. And he's like, I know you were. So
I love it. Well, that's like just seeding it, right? That's just like the
yeah.
seeding and starting to create that reality. And we can talk about that too. But I want to stay on to that your story of like how you went from that to where you're at
I
now.
am now. Yeah. So that's actually super important, because
Yeah.
if you fast forward about, let's see, my uncle came into my life when, I was, I think 2 years old. He married into the family. And, I fast forward to, me being 29. And, at the time I was riding high. I was an area, my title was director of sales, but it was kind of like an area vice president at AT&T, small little company. I ran the Midwest. I had all the sales reps in Chicago. Chicago was where my headquarters, my base
Yeah.
was, but really stressful, high pressure job. Loved every bit of it. And on my 29th birthday, my husband of just shy of 5 years was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease at the age of 34. So
Wow.
I'm 29, he's 34. We were like, holy moly, what do we do with this? And it was a shock to your system. As you can
Yeah.
imagine, like nobody wants to hear that. Your grandparents get that, like not your
Not,
young, strapping, ripped husband,
yeah.
not
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And over time, over like the next several months, like I was having a really difficult time. And then my uncle, his wife, who was like a mom to me, she died at 49 years old.
Oh,
And
wow.
I ended up taking a leave of absence. And I remember thinking every day, like, what the hell am I going to do? Like, I can't keep working 80 hours a week. My husband can't function.
Yeah.
um, we had been having this really big uh, scandal at AT&T. Like, one of the people that worked for me had a like pornography ring on his work computer. Like, so I'm
Oh,
in the middle of trying to
jeez.
investigate my whole staff, and my husband's telling me every day, like, I have to stop working. I can't work anymore. And I was like, no, 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 you keep working. We'll be okay. And then one day he said, like, look, this is it. This is my last day of work. I know you've been under stress, but I'm officially going on disability tomorrow. And I sat on the floor in
Mm.
my kitchen
Ugh.
and cried uncontrollably for 4 hours. And
Ah,
it was just awful. And so I kept
yeah.
thinking, like, what am I going to do? Like, I can't work 80 hours a week. I can't do this. And I kept thinking about my uncle, like, I'll open a restaurant, I'll do this. And I'm like, well, that's not going to solve it. That's not going to solve it. So
Yeah.
that ended up starting a really, really difficult journey of entrepreneurship, because I didn't know jack about entrepreneurship. I was a
Right.
corporate
Most don't.
employee.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like
I
this
was,
our
yeah,
own
like
journey of
nobody teaches
entrepreneurship.
this.
Yeah.
So other than having somebody I watched, like I had no idea what to do. So I actually went the route of network marketing, because I thought, well, that's going to be my answer.
Yeah.
Well, that was not my answer. And I
Okay.
know it's an amazing industry, but it ended up basically like I made a bunch of bad decisions. We went broke. Like, I burned through all of our money. We went bankrupt. My husband had to have multiple brain surgeries, and I just never gave up. Never gave up. And so I
Mhm.
started learning digital marketing, actually from someone I met through network marketing. So that was a
Yeah.
huge blessing. And started running his business, this one guy's, back end, because I had such a sales background.
Yeah.
And from that, one thing led to another. I started this podcast, started, creating courses. And then from there, my agency was really born. And we are a paid social advertising. We're not organic. We don't, Divine Social is the name, but it's social advertising. So,
Yeah.
today, here we are, several years later. I mean, this all started back in, um, 2000 was when my husband got diagnosed originally. Now, I've got a small team here in the U.S., around the country. We work with some really big brands, and it's just absolutely, uh, it's absolutely changed my life. So
Yeah.
it's been a rocky road. So I'm sure we can unpack some of that, but that's kind of how I got
Yeah.
there.
So I just, so a couple things. One, you just know within your heart that you're supposed to be doing something bigger, right? And
Yes.
so what was that voice like? Because like that's just like one blow after another blow after another blow. And it sounds like in a short amount of period of time of you adjusting and trying to figure this out, like what was that internal dialogue for you that says, no, I'm going to keep going. I'm not going to give up.
Well, there were a couple different voices. I'll be honest. Like, one was a really negative voice. One was like a
Yeah.
really like I went through a couple periods of being like suicidal. Like, I
Yeah.
used to have imaginations of driving into traffic, and would that be the fat, because I'm a coward. Like, I just couldn't do some of the other things. And so that was one voice, and that actually stayed with me for a really long time. That not the suicidal necessarily, but like the really fatalistic, like your life is
Yeah.
over. I'll be honest, I've dealt with a lot of PTSD from the blows. You live your life looking around the corner, waiting for the shoe to drop. So
Yeah.
that was one voice, and the other voice was, well, I don't have a choice. Like, I do not have a choice. My husband can't support me. Like, it is like, it's that whole, I think it's those corny posters that I used to like love when I was a sales manager at AT&T. If it's to be, it's up to me. Like, all that Zig Ziglar, as
Yeah.
corny as it is, like that, those tapes, I used to consume those tapes like a crazy person when it was tapes,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and those were inside of me at
Hmm.
the same time that other voice was. And
Yeah.
it was kind of like a toss up, which was going to win that day. And
Yeah.
they both were loud. So I think that's what kept me going. It's like, I just don't have a choice.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and you're right. If you have those tapes, and if you can, and we all have that, like, right? Like a lot of the clients that I work with have those two tapes that are playing out. The one that's, is tearing them down, and the one that builds them up. And it's almost like you're right. Like, which one am I giving more power to? Which one am I, allowing myself to get bought into that story? Because it's a great story, right?
yeah,
And I can find myself spiraling out of control in either one of those, right?
yes,
And so the one that's like here to support you and say, yes, you can do it, keep up in all the, all the motivational stuff, it does. If we can give it more power, right? And from universal law says, what we focus on, we bring about, right?
yeah,
So, and I think that's true for a lot of people. I think that's that internal dialogue. And when we learn to shut it off, a lot of my clients, I'll teach them how to shut that the second one off so that they can really hear the one that they're
yeah.
meant to hear. And that's really, I feel like it's intuition. I feel like that's um, our knowingness, our deep knowingness that says, yes, this is my path, right?
Yep.
And when we can tap it and turn on to that, it's a game changer. And so there
Well,
was something in you. There was some seed. There was
yeah.
some thing that said, okay, I'm just going to keep putting one foot in front of the other and one step in front of the other.
Yeah, and I think, knowing when I was young that I was destined for more. Like I think that
Yeah.
that helped too. And I won't lie, like therapy was a big deal.
Yeah.
I had a in the midst of all of this actually when we had moved from Colorado, we had moved from Chicago to Colorado. My husband had had multiple brain surgeries, and man, you do not know what you're capable of until you sit in the waiting room with the person you love more than anything in the whole wide world, and their brain is wide. Like that was one of those
Yeah.
moments where I was like, okay, wow, you thought you were capable of a lot, but you like
I had no idea.
you did this, you were able to do it. So because of that, he went from being able to not get in and out of a chair without help to functioning fully and skiing. So we left
Wow.
Illinois to go like live our lives, and God, I just lost this train of thought of where I was going with this, but good grief. Anyway, I mean, it's just, I knew that there was more, and I never gave up on more. And when we got to Colorado, the stress, things just continued to pile up on us. The business hadn't really started growing that much yet, and so my adrenals had crashed, and my doctor looked at me, and I'll never forget it. He said, "If you don't get your stress under control, you're going to die."
Yeah.
And one of my mentors would always say, as a business owner, you are essentially $1 million racehorse. And if you had $1 million racehorse, would you beat it into the ground? Would you
Mm,
starve it? Would you get it, not like, would you treat it that way? And when the doctor told me that, I went back to that saying and I was like, oh my God, I have to learn for the very first time in my life how to
yeah.
treat myself like $1 million racehorse. And that was
Yeah.
awful. Like, I'm going to be honest, like, that was awful. It was difficult. And in like today, like looking back on it, it's like hard to believe that being good to myself was so hard. But in that, therapy came about, like all of
Yeah.
these things that, um, all those years that I was really like, I was putting all of that personal development, I was putting all of that good stuff into my brain. It was white knuckling, and I didn't have the skill set to shut that other voice up. And it was through
Yeah.
therapy that really made all the difference. And everything
Yeah.
in my life, including our company, like my company grew in direct proportion to how much inner
Yeah.
healing I started getting.
Exactly, 1000%. It's amazing. And I just had this conversation earlier today, and it's like that if we are not taking care of that emotional stuff, it will come out. And this individual I was talking to, it is coming out in her physically in her body.
Yeah.
And she's having all these problems. I mean, three major problems with her body, right? And so if we're not taking care of that, and it has a ripple effect into our business, and it's amazing to watch. And a lot of times, watching folks that I work with, coming in with this self-sabotaging. So they're constantly sabotaging their business. They're never getting past that certain level, whether that's a financial level, whether that's a client level, like whatever that is. And it's just sabotage, sabotage,
Yeah.
sabotage. And then as soon as we clear that out, and it's like, like their eyes open up and like, oh, I was holding myself back. I was keeping myself from seeing this. I was not allowing myself to be heard and seen. And it's just, it's a game changer. And you're right. it has a direct impact on our business. Whether we succeed or fail, I truly believe it comes back to our mindset
Yeah.
and how we're showing up with it. It's energy.
It
It's literally energy.
it
It is
is.
energy 1000%. You know, whether we believe in it or not, it's still quantum physics. It is quantum
It's
physics.
still, yeah, you can choose not to believe in it, but it doesn't make it
It
less
doesn't
true.
make it easier. It doesn't make it
Yeah.
any easier. Like,
Yeah.
let's be real. Let's do this. So, so I understand that therapy was a big piece for you. And in that process, I'm guessing that you got to, and I didn't share this with you before, but as a therapist in my past life. So,
Oh, no way. Okay.
so I have 23 years of counseling experience, and I've combined it with energy psychology and then applied the principles of quantum physics to help entrepreneurs. So I understand that realm very well. So what was that unpacking process for you that really was there a strategy, a tool, a nugget that stood out for you that really felt like this was something that that you could share with our audience to like help support them on their path if they're here?
Yeah, I mean, well, so I'm a devout follower of Jesus. Like I'm a very strong, my faith is really strong. I don't label myself another term because I don't really like the connotations with it, but my faith has always been really, really important. So I started working with a faith-based therapist, and that was
Yeah.
helpful. And ironically, we actually used there's a modality called Splunkna, and it's essentially energy. It's using energy psychology and some things like that. And so we did a
Yeah.
lot of that work, and that really started to help. It was almost like it was speeding up the process without having to
Mhm.
rehash all of the junk, because
Exactly. Yeah.
who wants to do that?
And it's not necessary. It is
It
not
isn't.
necessary. It is not
It isn't.
necessary.
So
Yeah.
we did a lot of that work. We did some other work that that some people would get a little uncomfortable with, but it was like basically, for lack of better terms, some deliverance stuff, like just some really dark energy that was attached to my life that we broke off, like we just got rid of it.
Yeah.
And that was like, oh my gosh, like in the beginning I was like, what the hell am I doing? In the beginning it just felt a little weird.
But hey, if it works, there's 100 million modalities out there. If it works,
Exactly,
great. Like
exactly.
it just is helping me get to the next level, right?
Yeah,
So
and I was so desperate at that point because I had already started making some progress, and I was like, I just want to be free. Like I want to walk in who I was created to be. I want to be fully the best version of
yes.
myself. Like I'm just so desperate for that. So, at first it seemed a little bit weird, and then it didn't really seem like it did a whole lot. And then all of a sudden it was like quantum leaps of changes, and I was like, holy
Yeah.
moly. So that helped tremendously. And I know there's so many different ways that you can literally break off those negative energies, that you can do those things. And I just happened to make mine focused on my, founded and solidified in my faith, because that mattered to me. So,
Yeah.
and that really, literally, I can't say enough about it, because I saw I started to see the drastic changes in my business, where I went from being a solopreneur to having a small staff. And every leap I made, and that emotional healing, in that, doing that inner work, my income changed. And I was like,
Yeah.
shoot, I have been like white knuckling it for decades to try to get
Well,
my income to grow.
and there's it like and I think I so relate to you because even when I was growing up, I was in that place of like that white knuckling, like this the fear, the scarcity of everything. And as soon as I learned a new way, I was like, oh, I can breathe.
Yeah.
I can, like, it doesn't have to be so hard. And if I choose to take off this day, I can still grow my business without being in the doing of it. Right. And so there is just an easier way to do things. And it's getting in, I talk about getting in alignment a lot about when we're in alignment, things will just start falling into place. And it's that,
Yes.
and it's in the alignment of our trusting and knowing our inner being. Like, you know what? I'm on this path. I don't know how or where or what that's going to look like, but I just trust and know that I'm just going to take that next right move towards it,
It's so
right?
true.
And
And I think
just trusting along the way that things will work out, that
they
things will
will.
fall into place. And if you can hold that belief above anything else, it does. Even
It
like during
does.
this backdrop of what's going on right now, I'm like, okay, I just have to believe that this is happening for us and not to us. And I'm just like, that's my
Yes.
mantra. And I don't understand it. I don't get it. There's a whole bunch, but it's just, I'm going to do me and I'm just going to keep moving forward. Right.
I think what you said is so important. This is happening for me, not to me. I mean, that was a big shift for me. Like, and even it's taken my husband, I mean, he's had Parkinson's for 20 years now, and it's taken him a long time before he could see that, because, I can't even imagine what it's like to be him.
Yeah.
I know better than anyone, but I can't imagine.
Yeah.
But, realizing like kind of, oh gosh, like our marriage wouldn't be as good as it is. Like all these things would not have happened.
Oh,
I
that just
wouldn't
gave me chills.
I wouldn't have
Uh,
this business. I'd still be in corporate America. I might have been, I might have fallen in
hmm.
my father's footsteps, who was a chronic, cheater. And I mean, it could have been so different. So being able, one thing I didn't even think to mention, but you spurred it, is journaling has been such a powerful thing for me. And for me, it's a dialogue. Like it's a dialogue
Yeah.
between me and my creator. Like I'm always talking about things, and then reflecting back on like, oh wow, like I survived that, I didn't die, like what did I
Yeah.
learned this lesson, this, and really working hard. To me, journaling is like, it's like going to the gym, it's like eating healthy. Like the more I
Yeah.
do it, the more I can work out my crazy emotions that come in, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm gonna.
Ah,
For me, the biggest thing has been around money, because we grew up really poor with my father leaving, and there's all these different things, and then my husband and I was on a great trajectory with AT&T, and then all that happened, and then we went bankrupt. So it's always been around money, and I stop and go, okay, I never died in any of that. I never was homeless, because there have been people that have had, that we
oh
could have been
yeah.
homeless.
Yeah.
So I always go back through, and I'm like, okay, you didn't die. It's going to be okay. Like, and the journaling helps me process that out. And it's been
Yeah.
tremendous, a tremendous tool, plus all of the other inner work I've done.
And you're right, like that journaling is allows us to tap into it. And I always say pen to paper, right? Like when you need to process something, when you need to something go, release it, whatever that might be. But the other thing that you tapped on is writing down the evidence of
Yes.
things. And I'm a huge fan of writing down the evidence that things have turned out well, that things are the successes, if you will, because it's easy for us to get trapped in the spiral of not enough, oh woe's me, versus looking at and truly saying, wait, you know what, that was a success, that was huge, that was phenomenal. And in keeping that in a separate journal, I advise people to keep it in a separate journal so that it's accessible. And when you're in that moment of like questioning, am I going to be spiraling down, I can go back and say, you know what, let me look at this. And oftentimes it just helps shift that vibration, and it helps shift us
It
into that
does.
better feeling thought and a better feeling mode and or emotion. And by doing so, it can really shift so that we may not necessarily have to go down that whole spiral and, crash and burn at the end before we can see awarenesses that, nope, I'm on the right path. Let's keep moving forward.
Yeah,
So,
it's a big deal. I mean, and it's an ancient principle. Like it's not a new thing. Like it's for
yes.
going back and doing that is really really powerful, and that's been really helpful. We've had like I've been very fortunate this year with this crazy year that we've all been going through. It's actually been a really good year for my company, which has been unexpected. And I've really used that to like tap into like looking back and being like, oh, like it doesn't have to be, it doesn't always have to be bad.
Yeah.
And when I have like a day where it feels like, oh God, something went sideways with a client, it's like, oh no, like, let's look at what we've come through already. It's going to be okay. And it's just really, really helpful to be able to have that. And I mean, there's so many tools. I mean, I could probably talk for hours about the
Yeah.
different things I do, but and some of it is just pattern interrupt, right? Like, oh no,
Yeah.
that's not true. Like, who told you? Somebody said that once, like when you have these thoughts, like ask, who told you that? Who told
Yeah.
you that?
Yeah. It's not, yeah.
And it's
Because it's
like,
a lot of time,
well,
yeah, it's because it's a
nobody.
lot of times it's a story that has been created over the years, and we don't even know why we're doing it, why we're saying it, and sometimes it doesn't even belong to us. We are able to pick up on other people's thoughts and
Oh,
emotions, and so
yes.
oftentimes I will ask the question, I close my eyes and I just ask, like, "Does this belong to me?" If I get a yes, it's mine. Not maybe 2% of the time, it's mine.
Yeah,
90
especially for empaths. Oh
yeah,
Lord, that's a whole nother thing.
98% of the time, it's not even mine. So I just say, return to sender with consciousness. Done.
Yeah,
And we're moving on,
that's
right?
awesome.
So I love it. Well, this has been an absolute delight. I know that you've been traveling and you are probably ready and, ready to get some, maybe hopefully some food and sleep. So thank you for taking some time and connecting with us today. So where is the best way that people can find more about you and connect with you?
Yeah, so I mean, you can always head over to my company site and go to divinesocial.com, and then I'm pretty much in all of the socials under my name. I will be honest, I don't even though we do everything on social, I'm not personally in it all that much these days. My head's mostly focused on how do we, I just watching how my uncle came from nothing to something and how that's changed my life and the people around me. I spend majority of my time focused on our clients, but I
Yeah,
mean, you could just follow me on any of them. Occasionally, I will, I'll randomly pop something, but
I love it.
divinesocial.com and then Traci Reuter on all the socials. Tracy with an I. So
Awesome. And we'll put all that information into the show notes to take a look at that. And thank you, Tracy, for being here and sharing your nuggets and your story. And thank you for being a warrior, right? Thank you for being a warrior
appreciate
that
that.
gives permission to other people to be the warrior just like you. So
I
thank you.
appreciate that. Thank you, Teri.
I am so grateful that you joined me for this episode. If you've enjoyed this, then there's just one thing that I would like you to do. Click to subscribe and leave me a rating and review. As my way to thank you, let's connect for a free consultation. Just reach out to me at talkingwithteri, that's TERI.com, to book your time.